everyone. Happy Friday and welcome to Bookish Talk, the show that encourages bookish readers and empowers aspiring authors to write and publish their fiction or nonfiction story. I'm Nicole Rand. I'm co-hosting today this show. With me is my friend and the author of 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes, Devin Galaudet. Hi, Devin. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
So good to see you, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you. So we actually have a really enlightening show today. In our Writer's Corner for the month of May, we are exploring Devin's passion, which is travel writing. How exciting is that? I can't wait to dive in. And actually, last week, we shared a little history of travel writing and the three most common types, which are freelance, blogging, and book writing. Today, Devin's going to share some tips on writing a travelogue. So, Devin, do you remember your first travel story?
You know, I do. And I'm going to tell you a very brief story about it. Basically, I had begged a travel editor for an article, and he gave me a press release that was probably 150 words long and said, hey, listen, I could use 100 words on this. And it was a museum piece about the Bowers Museum having mummies from Egypt come in. I called up the director of marketing and I said, listen, I'd love to come down. I'd love to interview. Now, keep in mind, this is 100 words. It's a paragraph. And he said, yeah, we'd love to have you come down. He goes, who do you write for? And it just happened to be that on the coffee table was Time and Newsweek. So I said, I write for Time and Newsweek, which was a lie. And I went down there, and then the whole ride over there, I was thinking, oh, this is not okay. And I mean, I was panic stricken because now I'm like, the first thing that I'm doing with this guy is I'm lying to him. Anyway, I interviewed him for 4 hours. He was fine with it. He was like, yeah, don't worry. We've all written our first article. And I interviewed him for 4 hours, transcribed the whole thing, spent 2 weeks writing this 100 words. And it was almost identical to the press release. But
oh my goodness. Wow.
That was story number one.
That is an awesome story. How cool that you got to do that. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would have been like, oh gosh, no, I lied. He's going to know. He's going to see right through it, right? And then to try to cram it into 100 words. As soon as you said that, I was like, man, I can't do anything in 100 words.
You can't. It's mostly like, hey, there's mummies at the Bowers Museum. Right. And that's like half of the article.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, that is awesome. That's awesome. So actually, today, on top of talking about travel writing, Devin, in the Publisher's Corner, we're going to have Suzanne Doyle-Ingram. She's the CEO of Prominence Publishing. Suzanne is the author of 7 books and has co-written a total of 13 books. She coaches and trains business professionals on how to write, publish, and leverage their book to increase their visibility, open doors for speaking engagements, grow their brand and business. So Devin, can you tell us a little bit about your virtual library?
I can, and this is a particularly exciting one. You'll find out more in a minute. Our virtual background is of the second oldest from 1881, praised as the most beautiful bookstore in the world. The Livraria Lello and Irmão, commonly known in English as the Lello Bookstore. It is from northern Portugal, a municipality of Porto, from novellas from Fernando Pessoa to those of Nobel Prize winner Jose Saramago. Books are placed up to the roof. Wow. With dark and solid wood shelves. The impression it gives is that balance is precarious, and the whole design is really remarkable. It almost gets a feeling like, wow, what's holding this up? The catalog combines Portuguese books with international authors translated into languages including English, Spanish, Italian, and Russian. And really, that's not all. For a clientele of 70% tourists, the collection of ancient texts and rare works, which date back to the old Chardon Library, alternate with periodical publications specializing in magazines and CDs, and especially photo. On the walls are all kinds of paintings, illustrations, and prints on display, and childhood literature takes up 10 shelves. And just to say that this bookstore was, from what legend has it, was the bookstore that inspired J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, because it's got that look to it. It really is kind of amazing.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. What a beautiful, beautiful bookstore. And I love the pictures that you took while you were there that we were seeing up there because, when you see the marketing pictures, right? Like in our background, it's all empty and quiet. But what your pictures showed us is really how busy it is, people wandering through, and it almost makes it look a little bit smaller with all those people packed in there. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Now, did you buy a book from Lello?
Oh, I bought, first up, I bought a bunch of books and I have them sitting right here. But just for kind of to get people's bearing on it, like to go in this bookstore, you have to buy a ticket. And there is a line around the block.
Wow.
I bought a ticket. Matter of fact, here is my original ticket. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that's my original ticket from Lello, and it's actually, like, I think it cost about $5, something like that. But you use it as a coupon for $5 off any book in the store,
Mm,
which is kind of okay.
yeah.
That said, I think they started charging admission just because it was that popular, and they have to regulate people coming in because it's like a fire hazard otherwise. But it's a
Right.
remarkable place, and we talked about it earlier. But Fernando Pessoa is probably one of the, I mean, certainly in my opinion, most famous writer in all of Portugal. He's kind of a really interesting character. I wish we had more time to dive into him, but what did I buy? So I bought Harry Potter book 2 in Espanol because estoy
Awesome.
practicando, means I'm practicing Spanish. More Fernando Pessoa, and perhaps his most famous book, The Book of Disquiet. Highly recommend the bookstore, highly recommend Portugal, and highly, highly recommend Porto as a destination. And we'll talk a little bit more about travel writing later, but it's a remarkable place. And honestly, the bookstore is crazy. It really is. It's everything from the design to how perfect it is, and people. There's a vibe in there that's just worth experiencing.
Wow, wow. Well, I definitely hope that I get to visit there someday. I mean, I'll be honest, in all the previous shows that Bookish has been doing, right? Every week talk about a different library or bookstore, and I think now it's on my bucket list to actually travel around and visit all these places because they're so amazing, and there's some like Lello that has such a rich history. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to share some personal stories on that as well. Okay, well, on Bookish news, on May 9th, 2022, Joshua Cohen, author of the book The Niatus, won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. The Pulitzer Prize for Fiction is one of the 7 American Pulitzer Prize that are annually awarded for letters, drama, and music. It recognizes distinguished fiction by an American author, preferably dealing with American life, published during the preceding calendar year. As the Pulitzer Prize for the novel, it was one of the original Pulitzers. The program was inaugurated in 1917 with 7 prizes, 4 of which were awarded that year. Devin, can you tell us a little bit more about the book?
I can. So this is about how Benjamin Netanyahu shows up for an interview. His family unexpectedly in tow. Bloom, one of the characters, plays the reluctant host to guests who proceed to lay waste to his American complacencies, mixing fiction with nonfiction, the campus novel with the lecture. That Yahoo's is a wildly inventive, genre bending comedy blending identity and politics that find Joshua Cohen at the height of his powers.
So that is so amazing. Sounds like such an awesome book. But what do the Pulitzer Prize winners receive?
Well, probably to start with, notoriety. If you are a Pulitzer winner, you are going to overnight become an international writer. You know, everybody's going to know who you are. So there are 21 categories, and the winners each receive $15,000, a cash reward, and a certificate. Only the winner in the public service category of the journalism competition is awarded the gold medal. And so when we come back from break, we will talk to Suzanne Doyle-Ingram, author and CEO of Prominence Publishing.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Doyle-Ingram with Prominence Publishing, and in this video I want to explain something that will help you write your book. If you're thinking about writing a book, I've helped over 800 people write books, and this is something that is crucial because sometimes when you're writing a book, you get to a point where you feel kind of down. You think, why am I writing this? Why am I going to all this trouble? Who's going to read my book anyways? Who's going to buy my book? This whole thing is pointless, and it happens to almost everyone when they're writing a book. And one thing that can really help you get through that is knowing your why. Why are you writing a book? And I want you to literally take a piece of paper like this and write down my why. Okay? I'm just going to put it on a piece of paper. My why. And just take a minute, clear your mind and think, okay, the reason I'm writing a book is because, and fill out the information why you're writing a book. It may be because you want your parents to be proud of you. It may be because you want to leave a legacy for your children. It may be because you want more visibility for your business, which is what happens with a lot of people that I work with. It could be because you want to have a leave behind when you go to an appointment with a client. There may be a lot of reasons: credibility, visibility. The perception of you will be altered a little bit when you become an author. So really dig deep and think about why you're writing a book. And then after you write a few of those things down, dig even deeper and go, okay, well, so what? You know, I'm writing a book to leave a legacy for my children. So what? You know, I want them to know that I was more than just a mom driving a minivan or whatever. You know, I want them to know these are my thoughts and beliefs on this subject matter or whatever it may be. So then I want you to take a look at all these notes that you've written about why are you writing a book, and then try to form it into like 1 or 2 or 3 sentences and literally put it on your wall where you normally do your writing. It might be right beside your computer, it might be in your office, or if you have a little desk in your bedroom, wherever you do your writing, write down your why. It will help you so much when you get those moments where you're stuck or you're thinking, why am I doing this anyways? If you know why you're doing it, it will make it so much easier and it'll get you through the tough times. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions at all, let me know. I'm here to help.
Well, welcome to the Publisher's Corner. Our mission here is to enlighten, encourage, and empower inspiring authors to begin and continue writing and publishing their stories by inviting publishers to the Bookish Club to share their journey. So hello, Tim. Glad to be here with you today.
Glad to be here with you as well. And I'll tell you what, this is awesome seeing you in front of the camera. This is great. Thank you for joining us.
Right. I'm excited to be here. So, Tim, can you actually introduce Suzanne Doyle-Ingram to the Bookish Club?
Absolutely. I hope you all are as excited as I am about this. This is really hits core with what we do here. So welcome Suzanne Doyle-Ingram, CEO of Prominence Publishing. Suzanne's mission is to help people write and publish books that change the world. Oh my, that is an awesome goal. I think that is so cool. They have coached 700 people to write books through their elite courses and services. They are seeking individuals that have a mission, a vision, and a big, gorgeous dream for their life. People who wanted to get massive exposure for their message and make big impact in the world. We believe there are no ordinary people. Each person is not only extraordinary, but each person also has a story to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And Suzanne, I have to say, after watching that video, you and I were like on the same wavelength, because that's exactly what I do in my coaching for people with careers, is the why, right? And
Yeah.
once you've answered it, ask
Yeah.
yourself why again, dig a
Yes.
little bit deeper.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I feel you. I'm right there with you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Yes, and thank you for taking time from your Friday to be here. So we want to, of course, ask you some questions so our viewers can learn a little bit more about what you do and how they can publish their own books.
Sure.
So prior to becoming a writer and a publisher, what was your occupation? And what was the pivotal moment when you found your passion and purpose as an author?
I owned a marketing agency, actually, which I sort of fell into over the years. But what happened was when the economy crashed in 2008, so anybody over 40 can remember that, but it was a terrible time because people stopped spending money on marketing. So I kind of sort of stumbled along 2009. By 2010, I was like, this is not working. I need to do something else. And that's when I wrote my first book, because I sort of learned a little bit about Amazon letting people self-publish. So I wrote a book, but I actually wrote it under a fake name because I was so afraid it was going to fail. I didn't want anyone to know that it was me. I just felt like such a failure. But then it became a bestseller because of the marketing, little bits of information that I had stored into the recesses of my brain over the years. So it was awesome. Yes. And then really how the business happened was I kept writing books. I was needing to make money to feed my 3 young kids. And I thought, I'll write another one. And yes, it was exhausting because I wrote them at nighttime when the kids were in bed. But quite a few people kept asking me, like, how are you doing this? And so I just started teaching it. And I have a degree in linguistics, and so I have a little bit of a background with writing as well, and language. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Wow, it's so awesome to hear those types of stories because they have such an organic, start, right? Like you said, with and during the recession too, what a scary time to get anything started, when so many people were losing their jobs and nobody knew what was going to be happening. So kudos to you, definitely.
It was a tough
that's
time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome you were able to do that.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. What motivated you to write and publish the book? And the book's title is called And Baby Makes 3. Know What We Do, We Do.
Yeah. So no, it's actually And Baby Makes 3. Now what do we do? Because I wrote it because my first child was really high needs. And I sort of, as a person who loves books and loves to read, I was looking for a book to help me figure out how to get the baby to stop crying, And back then, my first child was born 20 years ago. And back then, there were books on, that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Yes.
I realized that book was about everything that could go wrong. It was really about scaring the crap out of you. So I thought, I want to write a book that helps other moms, So I wrote this book, and I don't know if this happens to other writers, but sometimes I feel like someone says, "Oh, I bought your book," and I go, "Oh, you did?" I don't really like people I know to write my books. And I look at it every now and then. I go, "Oh, it's actually okay. It's a good book. It's outdated now, I got to admit, but I loved it because I had messages from women who said, "Thank you. Your book helped me so much." And it just warms my heart to think that after having gone through an experience with this high needs baby, if I could just give one little tip that helps a mom, I remember, or a dad too, but I remember my baby crying for like 3.5 hours, and I just cry and cry. And all my other friends were like, oh, I just love being a mom. And I'm like, I am not having fun. So it makes a difference when you can show other people that, they're not alone.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely. And my first child was particularly difficult, right? My second one was a breeze, but my first one really tested my patience and my limits. And so exactly knowing that there's somebody else out there going through what you're going through that's a valuable gift that you can give somebody. So yeah, but that's not your only book. Of course, like we mentioned, you wrote 7 books. But on your website, you stated that you do not consider yourself a writer. Why is that?
It's funny. I was teaching a class one time and I said something about I'm not a writer. And then I said something like I'm an author. And one of the students in the class said, it's interesting that you call yourself an author, but you don't call yourself a writer. And here's why. I think that there are 2 kinds of people. People who love to write, who call themselves writers, and writing is their passion to the extent that they reach the end of the day and they feel sad if they didn't have enough time to write that day. My daughter is like that with her art. She lives and breathes art and she loves doing art. I just write to get stuff done. I just write to do what I need the writing to do, but I don't love it. I just don't love it. But the thing is, all of our clients are all business professionals. They don't consider themselves writers either. So that's a really important distinction to make, because I think you can not feel like a writer and still write a book.
True. Yeah. And there is a big difference between being a writer and being an author. There are plenty of people who could just write their whole life but never manage to publish anything.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole big process in and of itself. It
Yes.
takes a lot of time and dedication that sometimes creatives don't want to do.
They just want to be writing. I know.
Right,
I just had a conversation with a new client yesterday, and she was trying to like control everything, going, what about this and what font and what this and what that? And I go, how about if you just let go? This is our job. This is what we do. And we'll work with you on how do you like this cover? How do you like this interior typesetting? But can you just let go and let us do it for you? And she goes, oh, yes. It's nice to just hand over the baby, right?
Right. Exactly. So here at Bookish Club, our mission is to inspire young authors. What are your thoughts, or have you, I'm sure you have, being a publisher, but what are your thoughts on Book Talk?
Well, that's a great question. Book Talk, I think Book Talk I'm just going to level with you. Book Talk is great for readers. It's really for people who love to read books. And of course, if you're going to write a book, you should read books too. So yeah, Book Talk. I love TikTok, actually. I feel like I'm the oldest member. My kids are like, Mom, are you on TikTok again? I think TikTok is awesome. But Book Talk, I think there's a huge distinction between someone who wants to write a book and someone who talks all day long about books they've read. So that's my take on that.
Very, very true. Very true.
Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Hi, Tim. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
What a pleasure to have you. And as someone who's written a book myself, I can tell you it's one of the coolest things that I've ever done. So thank you for your efforts to help people get their books out. So just to add on to what we've been talking about, just what is the mission and uniqueness of Prominence Publishing, and actually what inspired the name?
Oh, wow. I never had anybody ask me that before. What inspired the name was, I think I liked the word prominence, because I think that's when you're a nonfiction, business writer, that's what you get. I like to help people write good books. So I don't say, hey, you write a book in a weekend, I just talk into your microphone and then throw it on Amazon. I really like to help people start from the beginning and do a really strong foundation for their book before they even start writing. So I think what makes me a little bit different is I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm kind of a hard ass, like bleep, because I'm like, no, you don't just sit down and write whatever comes to mind. Let's make a clear plan. So it's almost like writing a business plan for your book, reverse engineering. What do you want your book to do for you? And who are you writing it for? And what's in it for them? I am sorry, but writing a book all about yourself, unless you're Oprah Winfrey, isn't going to be that interesting for your reader. And you're asking a lot. I know. So I say these controversial things sometimes, Tim. But I think that's really what makes us different is I'm like, okay, let's get organized, figure out what you want your book to do for you, figure out who you're writing it for. What do you want to share with them? What do they need to know? What are the questions that keep them up at night? And also everybody I work with has a business. So we want the book to almost act as a vehicle for them to go, oh, I've had a taste of her and now I want to work with her. But it's not a salesy type of thing. So there's a fine line there.
Well, that's how businesses work. I mean, without a mission statement, how do you build a business? And mission statements and vision statements, that gives such clarity. And when you do it from a book perspective, that's why to me, the most critical thing of the book is the outline, because
yes,
the whole structure of it. Yeah, exactly.
So
on the website, I'm sorry?
I said, hallelujah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, on your website, you mentioned a variety of ways that newcomers can write their book. Can you share a few of those?
Sure. So sometimes we work with people to write their own solo book. We have a program called the Expert Author Program. So we take them from, I have no idea, to, holding a book in their hands. But we also do anthology books, or what we call multi-author books, where we'll work with a group of people. They each write one chapter. What makes us a little bit different is that we put all their names on Amazon. I want them to be able to have visibility and credibility and recognition. So having your own Amazon author page is important. I'm just launching a book on Monday for a bunch of IT professionals. So we've worked with chiropractors and realtors and lots of women entrepreneurs. So that's another way of doing it. We also help people who already have a book, who come to us and say, can you just get this on Amazon, please? And lots of different ways in between. Sometimes ghostwriting, but a lot of times when people come to me and say, I'm looking for a ghostwriter, they don't know how much it's going to cost, and it's very, very expensive. But also what I do is I work with them to understand that everything they need is already inside of them. A lot of times people look for a ghostwriter because they don't have the confidence to understand their own uniqueness has value. And if I help them with the outline and help them, give them some tips on writing, then they can write their own book 9 times out of 10.
We've actually talked a lot about collaborations as well on this show, and just that is the easiest way to get started. If you only have to write one pair or one chapter of a book, that is awesome.
It is awesome.
So here's a great question. As somebody again who's written, how has becoming an author and publisher empowered you personally, and who is your perfect client?
Oh wow, how has it empowered me personally? Oh, you know what? I love what I do. I love it. I also really love to travel. And by the way, I've been to Portugal several times, and exactly that town, Porto, where that bookstore is behind us. I love Porto. It's empowered me to be able to work from anywhere in the world, which is great. But I think for me is, just really briefly, I started a nonprofit literacy organization when I was about 22 years old. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that there were people in my town that had difficulty reading and writing. And so I recruited 85 volunteers from the University of Victoria. It was a crazy thing. I didn't know what I didn't know. But what I told the volunteers was, first, we're going to teach people that they can learn how to read. And that might take 6 weeks or 6 months. Then we teach them how to read. And I feel the same about my authors. I'm always motivating them and trying to encourage them that, you can write this book. You are important and you matter. And I think, I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's my gift that I have received from the work that I do in the world. And I literally fall in love with my clients.
So what do you consider a perfect client, though?
Somebody who already has a business, who understands that they're not going to make millions of dollars from book sales, but having the book sell them. I talk a lot of business stuff with my clients. So when you know your average customer value, you can give away your book and spend $4 on that to try to get a new client. And so I'm really honest with people too. I'm like, oh, well, guess what? confetti is going to fall from the sky when you get your book on Amazon. Like, let's get real. You know, you get the book on Amazon and then the hard work begins, using it as a marketing tool. And all of a sudden I forgot what your question was.
Just who's your perfect client?
Perfect
Just,
client.
you know,
Yeah, somebody who has a business
exactly.
who wants to use a book to get more clients, essentially.
Oh, cool. So here's a quick one. What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Always start with an outline. Always think about who you're writing your book for and what's in it for them. Ask yourself, does my reader really need to know this? Or am I just writing this because I think it's a cool story about this time that this thing happened to me? So you have to check your ego and really think about what's in it for the reader. There's how many books born every second of every day. You know, what's going to make yours stand out is really if you can come from a place of service for your reader.
Well, Suzanne, you have given us so much great information today. What is your vision for 2022 and how can we support it?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, my vision is to help at least 100 more people write a book through my expert author program, and just help people see the value that they hold, to be able to encourage them to go after their dream of writing their book. And the thing is, I make it pretty easy with my program. I think just to be able to serve more clients and help people achieve their dream of writing a book.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a noble goal. And so to help you out, how can we get a copy of your book and how can we follow you on social media?
Oh, you know, I'm so lucky that my name is unique, Suzanne Doyle-Ingram. I'm the only one out there. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or if you want to go to my website at prominencepublishing.com, we have a little bar across there that gives out free training. So you can put your email address in there and get free training on, it's actually a replay of a book that I did called, a class that I did called Everybody Has a Book Except You.
Oh my gosh, man, that's so true. I feel that. So, well, that's awesome. I'll definitely connect with you on LinkedIn. Thank you again so much for being here and sharing all your wonderful advice. So when we come back, we're going to learn more about the what and the how of travel writing. We'll be right back.
An enlightening quote by Albert Einstein: "Strive not to be a success, but to be of value." Encourage, enlighten, empower.
Hey, Devin and everyone, welcome to the Writer's Corner. We're continuing our conversation on travel writing today. This is, of course, an incredibly popular genre that's becoming just taken the world by storm. It's every single week. It seems like there's a new book about travel that's getting published, and I'm seeing it show up everywhere. Every single day, there's more and more writers that are interested in writing one. And as the interest in travel writing grows, so does the need to clarify the question, what exactly is a travelogue? And how does it compare to a travel book? And Devin, you are well qualified to provide the answer to this question. So tell us, what is a travelogue versus a travel book?
Well, first off, it's good to see your face, Paula. And, I suppose probably the easiest way to describe the difference between a travelogue and a travel guide or a travel book is one is filled with opinion and one is filled with facts. Now, it really depends on what it is that you're hoping to accomplish by reading one or writing one, but we'll talk a little bit more about some of the specifics in that. Ultimately, a travelogue aims to be a true account of an individual's experience traveling. It describes what the traveler sees, hears, smells, tastes, feels in his external or her external world while traveling. A travelogue can exist in the form of a book, a blog, a diary, or journal, an article, an essay. I mean, really in every single way possible that you could be writing or narrating something. There is, matter of fact, we talked about it last week. And if you haven't seen last week's show, go travel to e360tv.com and check out last week's episode where we talk about in Innocents Abroad by Mark Twain. I think we're going to mention it again a little bit later in the show. And so in that particular book, Twain talks about his experience, traveling. And so it is an essential part of what his experience is. A travel book is information about the place designed for use for a visitor or a tourist. It's very much like, here's the address for the place. This is how much it costs to take the ferry. Make a left turn at the crooked tree. It's really about the details so you can navigate from getting point A to point B. So it'll have flight information, things like that. It'll include information on sites, accommodations, restaurants, transportation, activities, maps of varying detail, and historical and cultural information are frequently included. When I first did my rucksacking trip with a backpack across Europe, I took with me a Let's Go guide. And that basically just gave me the information I just described on how to get around Europe. And it's all over. Like if you want to go to, a particular country in Africa, I guarantee you there is a travel guide that will give you all of the details of what do you do once you land, or if you get off the train, or whatever it is to get from point A to point B so you can navigate around. So not all travel blogs are travel logs. In the pure sense of the term, some authors are less concerned with giving personal accounts of their own experience traveling than capturing internet search traffic by providing tips, advice, or practical information about travel. For example, they may claim to present the best things to do in a particular destination instead of what I did there. Some travelogues do publish hybrids that are about tips and advice as well as their own experience of things. But the truth of the matter is, when you see articles, and there's a gajillion of them where it says something like, 7 things to do in Paris, those are list articles. They're going to give you a list of things, and it's basically, when we talk about writing a chapter for a book, really what they're doing is they're writing a paragraph to create a chapter or an article or something like that. They're really easy to write because you don't have to go into any detail at all, and most of the information already exists. Likewise, notes and observations on history, society, and culture are all common features of travelogues, as we certainly learn about the world when we travel. Paula, so the answer to the question is, what is the difference between a travel book and a travelogue? A travel book gives advice, tips, and a variety of things associated with travel as a whole, while a travelogue is a dialogue with the writer describing the emotions and experience that they had when they traveled from one place to another. A matter of fact, what it kind of does is it puts the destination and its people as a character in your book, and you give them lots of space to breathe and grow, and you allow that to kind of like organically fill the page. So it can be a book of narration, pictures, places, accompanied by videos. I've done all of those things that you might see in a travel documentary. As I mentioned earlier, Mark Twain's The Innocents Abroad is a great example of travelogue in book form. While it was published in the 19th century, it is characterized as a travelogue by today's standards and not as, shall we say, a modern travel book or guide. Do you have any questions, Paula?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I feel like this is a whole story about everyone else's adventures that I want to read, which is so much better than those old manuals that I remember back in the day. I'm really excited about this. I think the biggest question I have for you is, which travelogue would you recommend reading first?
There's so many good ones. Jan Morris wrote a number of books. I mean, she was, did this probably, 40, 50 years ago. She's great. There is a guy who's pretty famous, Paul Theroux, Dark Star. This is his travels in Africa. I'm going to be offering one in my book recommendations in a little bit. So that writer is J Maarten Troost. And, Mark Twain has written a ton of travel books. So there's loads of places that you can start. All of those authors. Pico Iyer is fantastic. So just head down to your local bookstore and just start perusing the travel stuff and pick something that's going to knock you out. There's lots of good stuff.
Yeah, it's a section of the bookstore that I typically do not frequent. So now I will be making a stop there. Thank you so much for the recommendation. Tune in next week as Devin shares some of his own travel writings. And Bookish Talk is sponsored by Pivot Point School for Entrepreneurs. When you're ready to pivot from employment to entrepreneurship, they will point you in the right direction. Visit thrivingwomennetwork.com to learn more about their 10-week online certification course and scholarship program. When we come back, we'll be sharing our own book recommendations.
You can't just talk about it. You have to actually go do it. You can talk about flying, but until you get on a plane, you don't know that first sensation of a plane taking off.
The course I took leading up to my CCE, travel writing in the Italian tradition. We learned all the ins and outs of Italian culture. And one of the most beneficial things he did was he brought in a student who previously went on this trip. Having both him give us the technical academic standpoint and then having, someone who's actually done this was really nice.
They spend 4 weeks there. Students have their own apartments, and so they're responsible for their kind of day-to-day living, grocery shopping. So they have to define for themselves what they want that experience to be.
When you live at home, things are really easy compared to when you're living by yourself in a country where nobody speaks your language. It forces you to be independent.
All the cities we went to had such unique aspects to them that it felt like you were meeting a new person almost. You were meeting a new culture, a new lifestyle in every city.
The longer we were there, the less you felt compelled to be taking pictures and more just like, I live here. Once you get to that point, I felt like I was really becoming a part of the culture.
To travel, it definitely brings out more of your personality than you thought you had. It really makes me see that I can accomplish goals.
It's just a cool thing about Europe. Like, you go on a trip like this and you never know what you're going to expect. You never know how it's going to change you.
I do feel more capable of being able to talk to different people because traveling abroad, you understand that more. And especially as a physical therapist, to see that there are different cultures and I'm able to understand them.
Patience and troubleshooting are two things that you just need to know when you're traveling. And I know when I work for a company, those two things, patience and troubleshooting, they're life skills. Finding different creative ways that you didn't know existed until you left your country, I think are going to be very relevant to me here when I enter the workforce and I'm forced to solve problems that I've never had to encounter before.
What you want to do is get students prepared for adulthood. So the idea is, in these courses, teach students not what to think, but how to think. But one of the main ways to do it is to put them in situations where they have to think on their own.
I think this whole experience has definitely improved my college education, helped me grow and become more independent, but it's also helped me through my major by giving me the college experience that is the most beneficial. I don't think I could have done a trip like this without the support of my school.
Welcome back to Bookish Talk. Before we begin our book recommendation section, I wanted to kind of let you guys know that one of our Bookish Talk family, Vicki Winterton, who was on our second episode, who was the publisher of Expert Insights, died very recently, very unexpectedly. She helped, I think, 1,700 book writers become published through Expert Insights Publishing. I want to say on behalf of everybody here that we send only the most loving condolences to Vicki's family, and keep writing, because I know that's what she'd want you to do. So in this segment, we always offer our personal book recommendations with the goal of encouraging you to venture outside of your comfort zone and explore different genres of books. And so we've got a great group of books today, and I think we're going to start with Tim. Tim, what did you read and what did you think?
Well, first of all, that's a heck of a way to start this segment off. I'm depressed now. I'm sorry to hear that. And obviously, I'm going to echo the condolences on her passing. But my book today is called Prisoners of Childhood by Alice Miller. This is one of 3 books that I have discovered that actually helps people understand how to heal from their mental issues. In fact, keep in mind when I discussed this, that this book was actually published in 1981. It's important to understand that the psychology industry is still based on the biology theory, which is basically that we are born with our mental troubles and there's nothing you can do about it, which is why the industry gives behavioral advice and labels people with mental disorders. In fact, the Handbook of Mental Disorders, the DSM, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, is almost 1,000 pages long and includes a recent edition that basically says that if you are sad because the seasons change, you need to see a therapist, and the disorder is even called SAD. And so this is the industry. So, for example, the recent suicide of Naomi Judd. And what's interesting about all the information that's come out is she knew what her problems were, but in her entire life, there's never been a professional that helped her healing, because it turns out that healing is bad for business. And this book actually turns the psychology industry on its head. Let me begin by saying the only reason why I could say I have solved the marriage problem is because I forgave my parents when I was 25 years old. So let me just read this real quickly. The drama of the gifted child, which is being described as a sensitive and alert child, consists of his recognition at a very early age of his parents' needs and of his adaptation to those needs. In the process, he learns to repress rather than acknowledge his own feelings because they are unacceptable to his parents. Although it will not always be possible to avoid these ugly feelings, in the future they will split off, and the most vital part of the true self will not be integrated into the personality. This leads to emotional insecurity and loss of self, which are revealed in depression and concealed behind a facade of grandiosity. Alice Miller defines the ideal state of the genuine vitality of free access to the true self and to authentic individual feelings that have their roots in childhood as healthy narcissism. And then she goes on and basically says that people who haven't dealt with these, they become prisoners of their false self. And that's why understanding and then healing through forgiveness is the most important step that we go through in the maturing process. And anybody that's still dealing with childhood issues, please read this book. So thank you very much for letting me introduce that.
That sounds like an incredibly powerful read, Tim. Thank you for sharing Alice Miller's book with us. I'm going to talk about a book by J Maarten Troost, The Sex Lives of Cannibals. You can see mine is a fairly dog-eared copy. It is a fun read. I have to tell you that there's a major downside to it. You will not read anything that has to do with the sex lives of cannibals in this book. It's a cute title. It's not accurate in the least. There is some discussion of cannibalism because I think the country that he writes about, Kiribati, is probably the last known one that actually had cannibals living on their island. So I'm going to read a little bit from his book. Here's why I'm recommending it, not because the title is accurate, but because it's a really entertaining read. It's got kind of a Mark Twain quality to it, which is a wonderful thing. So if you're looking for sort of something that's light and entertaining and fun, as well as a travelogue, this is a good choice. One day, I moved with my girlfriend Sylvia to an atoll on the equatorial Pacific. The atoll was called Tarawa and should be devout believer in a flat earth ever alight upon its meager shore. He or she would have to accept that he or she had reached the end of the world. Even cartographers relegate Tarawa either to the abyss of the crease or to the far periphery of the map, assigning to the island a kindly dot that still manages to greatly exaggerate its size. At the time, I could think of no better destination than this heat-blasted sliver of coral. Tarawa was the end of the world, and for 2 years it became the center of mine. And I think it's a great way to start a book, and I think it's a lot of fun. Again, if you're considering writing your own travelogue, or where you're sort of like offering your opinions about a particular destination and how that place affected you, this is going to give you some good insights on how to do that, as well as just kind of entertain you during the process. So I highly recommend it. And now we'll turn over to Paula. What you got for us this week, Paula?
All right. Well, we're going back to one of my favorite topics, which is all around mindfulness, all about courage. You know that I love that. And this particular book is a compilation and almost an analysis of the author's work and research over several decades of psychologist Alfred Adler. And it is a story more than it is just a strict how-to personal development book. So they walk you through multiple stories of how this young man who is incredibly unhappy visits this philosopher in his city or in the outskirts of it and has these 5 conversations. And what it really does is teach you that a couple different lessons. One, that it's really dangerous for you to believe that your past determines your future. 2, that if you're focusing on everything that's wrong with you, you might be just looking for reasons to keep yourself where you are on purpose. And that also, when we think of things as competition, we're actually just making things up to hurt ourselves. And I just want to share one of the most powerful quotes with you to give you insight into what this is about. And it is: the courage to be happy also includes the courage to be disliked. When you have gained that courage, your interpersonal relationships will all at once change into things of lightness. This is just, it's a short, amazing book. I highly recommend it. I love the paperback. I love the Audible version. Get your hands on it. Seriously, it's a fantastic read.
Thank you, Paula and Tim, for your shares today. We'll be right back after this commercial.
An empowering quote from Nelson Mandela stated, "The greatest glory in life lies not in never failing, but rising every time you fall." Encourage enlighten, and empower.
When people pitch me and they clearly haven't really read the page.
Too many writers make themselves the centre of the story when they're not. I'd suggest getting out of the way and letting the places and people that you meet tell the story for themselves.
Where somebody sends me a very lazy one-line pitch for a piece. If you can't be bothered to find 100 words to engage me with a piece, why would I trust you with 1,000?
Things are a lot more experiential now than they ever were before, so it's a little bit more about the places than perhaps this hotel is great and has nice sheets.
Your sentences are too long and they've got too many adjectives in them.
Write the piece. Give yourself a day or two and do not look at it. Don't go near it. And then come back to it.
Always read out loud to yourself what you write.
I would suggest this is going to be a very popular tip.
Instinctively, we're better at self-editing verbally, I think, than in writing. You can stare at your screen and really become very anxious.
When you hear something read back, it really does flush out any problems with the flow of the sentences and the grammar as well.
They will show up when you read it out. So always, always read it out loud.
Oh, so many.
Land of contrasts.
Barefoot luxury.
I hate the word cute.
Gin clear water.
A well-appointed hotel room. What does that mean?
The cities are always vibrant and markets always bustling and views always breathtaking.
It's really annoying.
Crystal clear water.
And anything to do with a large student population ensuring a lively night scene.
It is an area of journalism that does attract cliches like a magnet, unfortunately.
Welcome back and thank you for joining us today. We want to make sure that we continue to encourage you, our viewers, to not limit yourself to one category of book or literature. Because when you do that, you don't know what you don't know. You might have a passion to read, but if you only limit yourself to specific literature, you might end up reading or writing in a genre that doesn't suit your skills. So continue to get curious, read from a variety of literary categories. And this is going to allow you to be inspired by new voices and new ideas. Please watch our most recent episodes of Bookish on E360 TV.
And thank you for joining us on Bookish Talk. We sincerely hope that something we said encouraged, enlightened, or empowered you to start your journey to write your legacy book. Be sure to join us at our Bookish Club and begin the journey to journal. Tune in next week and we will share some more tips on travel writing. And we'll have a great interview. Visit our website at thrivingwomennetwork.com and subscribe or leave a question because you never know when we're going to discuss it right here on Bookish Talk. Thanks for being here.